We are absolutely drowning in information, right? So in a world like this, there's one skill that's become more important than ever: the ability to actually think for ourselves. Today we're going to dive into a great article by a teacher named Shirendra Ojha, who breaks down how we can build this skill, not just in school, but right from our own homes. The article kicks off with a story that I think a lot of us can relate to. The author, a teacher himself, was kind of blown away when his grandkids started talking to him about critical thinking, something they'd picked up from videos on their phones. It's just this perfect reminder that the very things we often worry about as distractions can actually be powerful tools for learning.
So, that one little moment at home, it actually points to this massive challenge we're all dealing with. We're wading through this constant flood of information every single day. So the real question is, how do we learn to sort through it all, to tell what's real from what's not, and to form our own solid opinions? That's what we're going to tackle.
Now, before we can get to the solution, we first have to really understand the problem. So let's start with the first big challenge: thinking beyond the textbook.
Just think about your phone for a second. It's a nonstop stream of articles, videos, headlines, and opinions. It is completely overwhelming. And the real tricky part, as the author points out, is that so much of it is just noise. How in the world are we supposed to filter it all?
And this is where you see the huge disconnect, right? On one side, you've got the old school way of doing things. Education was all about memorizing facts from a book, and success was just about your exam score. But on the other side, that's our reality now. Information is everywhere. The game has totally changed. It's not about what you know anymore, but what you can do with what you know.
And here's where it gets kind of dangerous. When we don't have the right tools to analyze all this information, what do? Well, we fall back on emotion. We react instead of thinking. We just accept a headline at face value without ever questioning it. And this isn't about failing a test. This is about the real-world decisions that shape our lives.
Okay, so if the old way is broken, what's the fix? Well, it all comes down to this one core idea: critical thinking. So let's break down what that actually means.
The author gives us this really clear and powerful definition. It's not about being critical in a negative sense. Not at all. It's about being a smart consumer of information. It means you pause, you analyze, and then you form a judgment based on reason, not just a gut reaction.
So how do you actually do it? Well, this is basically the step-by-step guide. First, you have to look at the information objectively and try to set your emotions aside. Next, you check your sources. Where is this coming from? Then you look for any biases or hidden agendas. You figure out what's a fact and what's just an opinion. And only then, after all that, you make a decision based on logic and proof.
All right, so we get what it is, and we've got the steps. But, so what? Why is this such a big deal? Well, the answer is all about the power of creating a thinking generation.
This quote from the article, it absolutely nails it. This whole thing isn't just about getting better grades. It's about building a better future. It's about raising a generation of people who can think for themselves, who can engage with the world in a rational way, and who can be truly responsible citizens.
And look at what happens when you have this skill. You basically get a toolkit for navigating the 21st century. You can tell the difference between fact and fiction, you can tackle really complex problems, and you can even come up with new, innovative ideas. This isn't just about passively consuming information. It's about actively shaping the world around you.
This means the whole idea of a classroom has to change. When facts are just a Google search away, the teacher's role can't just be about dishing out information. Their job has to evolve. They need to become more of a guide, someone who helps students learn how to think and explore for themselves.
So, to make this happen, the article argues that we need to ditch the boring old school lectures. Instead, learning has got to be active. It should be about interacting with ideas, getting out in the real world on field visits, solving actual problems, and using technology as a launchpad for exploration, not just a distraction.
So, let's pull all this together. What's the big picture here? Well, the author paints this vision of an entirely new journey for education.
And really, here's the bottom line. In a world that's constantly changing, where things feel more and more uncertain, being able to think clearly isn't just a nice-to-have, it's your lifeline. It is absolutely the most essential skill for navigating whatever comes next.
And that brings us to the author's final, really powerful idea. We have to completely reframe what we think education is for. It can't just be a race to get a piece of paper. It has to be a journey, a lifelong process of developing our minds and learning how to think.
And so we're left with this big question. And it's not just for teachers or parents, it's for all of us. Now that we know how crucial this skill is, what's our part to play? How can each of us help prepare the next generation for this completely new and totally necessary journey?